There's a patient waiting. She's not due till 10.
They all come early now, hoping I'm still alive.
I see you've put a ring round the date.
He would have been 80 today.
Who would?
Oh, you never met him. Wilhelm Flies.
Of course I met him, Papa, when I was a child. You still celebrate Fleece's birthday?
He was an unreliable person. But I loved him once.
Are you sure you feel well enough to see this woman?
Thank you. I'll see her now.
It's not much of a view. And you could do with a few more things on the walls. Would that be so bad, something to look at?
They're supposed to look inwards.
I was thinking of you.
Because I described the Monet hanging in Charcot's study?
I meant something more modest. You haven't opened it. May I?
It's the aphasia book. That won't make us rich. Fleece says I'd be a wealthy man if only I went into general practice.
Is he so rich?
He has influential patients which help. And when you've studied under Lister and Pasteur, it gives a good many strings to your bow. That I do envy him. And he's the best nose specialist in Germany. Don't underestimate noses. Fleece makes a fortune from them. And he writes newspaper articles on everything under the sun, from medicine to astronomy, but then compared to me, he's a man of the world. Apart from being a walking encyclopedia. It's true. He's written me a long letter telling me about the latest developments in industrial steel tubing.
What's the matter?
It's all right. It's passing. Note the dedication.
To Dr. Joseph Breuer. Why do you?
Come. I must smuggle you out now. This is my secret exit. The patients come in through there and go out through here, so they never have to meet. Alternatively, I can slip out without anybody knowing. It's gone now.
Do you really have to learn about steel tubing?
I have no fear. I didn't understand a word. Fräulein Elizabeth. Frau von Riedberg.
Thank you.
There are days when I feel quite helpless. Even when I do manage to remove the symptoms for a time, the illness buries itself more deeply in the system, while the patient insists he wants to be cured. But does he?
Last autumn, I began to treat a young girl. Breuer sent her to me. Clever, gifted, self-assertive. If anything, too much so. A double bereavement in the family, her father and recently her sister in childbirth. Ever since, she suffered from cramps, sleeplessness, acute pains in the legs. Nothing physically wrong with her, needless to say.
You've tried electrotherapy?
Yes.
And she doesn't respond to it?
On the contrary, she loves it. Result, one day she's released from pain, completely cured. The next, she's doubled up in agony, pleading for treatment. I tell you this, she's virtually an addict.
I know the kind. Sometimes it's the same with hypnosis, don't you find? Especially with a certain class of middle-aged woman. Almost certainly in love with a gynecologist, receives a pack of doctors 3 times a week.
And when you enter the room, she's half hypnotized already. What would you say if I suggested that all such cases, all, without exception, find their impetus in the patient's sexual life? You'd agree?
Wholeheartedly. But I admit I have an interest in doing so. Why do you smile?
At your wholeheartedly.
It's sincere, I assure you. My own work is increasingly concerned with periodic sexuality. Even the nose responds to menstruation and to sexual excitement in both sexes. And by treating the nasal passages, I can dispel psychical disturbances as thoroughly as physical ones. Anxiety no less than migraines.
I'm saying, suppose it's the invariable cause. The single origin of every trauma.
What does Breuer say?
He's waiting for biology to make it respectable. Meanwhile, he sends me all his unsolved mysteries. And I have too many mouths to feed not to be grateful. Far too many. Only last month I had to find somewhere else to live, somewhere larger, more expensive. This procreating must stop, don't you think?
If you're sure that won't lead to any anxiety and neurosis.
Why not? I need more cases.
If I may say so, I think you should consider treating this girl as a case of nasal reflux syndrome. I have a theory.
Tell me once more about the last days of Gestein. Before you heard your sister was dying, the day you took a walk around the lake.
Why do you always come back to that?
Because you always resist it. I know. It's been a tiring interview. Be strong, just a little longer. You'd taken that walk before, with your brother-in-law.
And on other occasions. The 3 of us. You may smoke, Dr. Freud, I don't mind. And I know you're longing to.
Thank you. But this time, on the walk alone, you were dreaming about marriage?
Thinking about it, yes.
An unusual train of thought?
For me? Not really. I've never met anyone appropriate, that's all. And that day it was no more than natural to think about it. When you see someone as happy as my sister was.
And when you're so unhappy yourself. So you sat down to rest. And the pains began. What were you thinking when the pains came on? Can you remember?
I don't know.
Try.
Probably. How unfair it was for a person's good fortune to be threatened by their very happiness. I mean, Dolphy having a second baby so soon after the first one. We were all anxious about it.
So when you got home, you took a bath to ease the pain. And at first it was soothing, the cramps relaxed. And then suddenly they came on again, this time for good.
Oh.
Why?
Oh.
What gave rise to it this time? Think. Look at me. Remember how it was. You're in the bathhouse, in the warm water, lying at ease, thinking about the day. About the walk you took. About Adolphine and her baby. In the warm water, free from pain. Listen to me.
No.
Fräulein von Riedberg, must I repeat, if I'm to help you...
How? How is it helping? If the pains are getting worse this very moment...
Why do you suppose that is? You tell me.
Because you're tormenting me. Don't you understand how much I loved my sister?
I do. Believe me. Is it love that's causing you such pain? Come, lie back on the couch a moment. Then put your head back where I can reach it. Rest it back. And when I press against your forehead, you will try to clear your mind, clear it of all other thoughts, and think back to that afternoon. What can you remember when I press? Hard. Something now. The memory's coming.
Only that I thought about my cousins while I was lying in the bath. And my Aunt Gisela.
Why about them?
They stayed in the room as above when they came to visit.
And nothing else? What are you thinking of now?
My mind was elsewhere.
Yes?
You could tell.
Just answer me. What are you thinking of?
The garden house.
The garden house?
At Reichner. Where Dolphy died. And I was so upset. He wasn't there to meet us at the station.
Your brother-in-law? Why were you so upset?
That was when I knew. I thought I couldn't move another step. I'd seen it in his face. Beside the lake. How worried he was. And when they left for Reichner, he looked at me to warn me that it would never be the same. That it was the end. And then the telegram. And the journey. And silence. And when he wasn't there, I was so afraid it was too late. That it had all come true. That she was lying there. And he was all alone with her. And she was dead. Oh, help me!
Fräulein von Riedberg, don't you know that you're in love with your brother-in-law?
No! Oh, no!
Don't stop
no.
now!
No, haven't you say such a thing!
Look at me!
Oh.
Remember when you arrived at last, when you came into the garden house, into her bedroom, and you saw her, you thought...
I thought, what did I think?
Tell me!
I thought now he's free again and I can be his wife! Is that what you want to hear?
Is it the truth?
it were the truth, why would I hide it from you?
For the same reason you hide it from yourself.
Do you think me so wicked?
Is it wicked to have emotions? To be attracted to someone? Even a brother-in-law?
It isn't true.
Your words, you told me so yourself. You longed to be his wife. Is that so terrible?
You think me without shame, then?
On the contrary. Why do you think you've fallen ill? Because you are ashamed. And the force of your illness is no less than the force of your moral will. You may take it as a tribute, if you wish, to fend off immoral thoughts. See, the mind refuses them, but the body has no conscience. Thankfully, or we should never suspect what others sometimes struggle to endure. I've known for months.
Will you tell Dr. Breuer what I said today?
Not if you don't want me to. He is your doctor too, of course, and as such, shoulders the same responsibilities as I do. Are you afraid he'll speak to your family about it? I can assure you.
I'll say you talked me into it. It's true, you did.
Tell me something. Where do you feel pain now?
Here. In the thigh. A little.
Only a little? Come, stand up, please. You see, remember, what is said in this room is our concern and no one else's. No matter how deeply we delve. Confessions, fantasies, denials, they're all alike. In this room, you must cease to be afraid. And please be honest with yourself. Today, we breached the defenses.
You think so?
And next time, we'll ease that little pain that's left. You'll see, our victory will be complete. You doubt me?
Why pretend? There are some things that can't be changed.
Some things never.
Circumstances. And people's lives. The misery it brings, you admit yourself, that can't be changed.
But isn't it a kind of progress, don't you think? If, between us, we can transform this misery into common unhappiness.
Till next week, then.
We need more cases. It would be most unwise to publish the results of a few inconclusive trials with a new method which can only...
It's 10 years since you began with Bertha Pappenheim.
A method which can only alarm patients and alienate professional opinion, you know that. Zigmund, most doctors can't afford to spend hour after hour with their patients discussing the most intimate details of their lives. They have no choice but to condemn it.
Hypocrites! If there was an overnight cure, they'd be sure to damn it out of hand. The treatment works, and that's all that matters, not the time involved. Surely we can issue a preliminary report.
You'll just hear me out. It will be said that we have a small, unrepresentative sample, the rich, who can afford such treatment. Rich, idle girls, highly suggestible as patients go. I am as convinced as you are that we must frankly reveal the sexual origins of neurosis in a good many cases. Most, if you will. But we have only a rudimentary idea of the mechanism of repression in such instances. Why, for example, do certain events create a trauma, while others, equally painful, are accepted with equanimity? Why are some patients more vulnerable? Is it innate in them? Some biological defect? To rush into print merely to indulge in abstract speculation.
You've been reading this? My efforts on aphasia?
Oh, yes. Yes. Excellent.
You didn't think it failed to live up to its dedication?
On the contrary.
It won't sell 50 copies, but it'll get me a pat on the back from the neurologists. Won't it?
Well, there is controversial matter there, too. But yes, of course. It's very well written.
For someone whose mind is taken up with too much abstract speculation?
Now, really, I didn't mean that. Is there no pleasing you?
Joseph, this is my sop to science. You could at least applaud that if you're going to cavil at my prurient interest in the neuroses.
It's nearly 8 o'clock. You must forgive me.
Sometimes I think I should move to Berlin. They have more stomach for controversy.
The more extravagant, the better, to judge by your friend Fleece.
Then you'd recommend the move? Or do you think his notion's merely extravagant?
How touchy you are. Not at all. But, Zigmund, it's the same in Berlin as anywhere else. Brilliant ideas must have an acceptable source. Why else are you so keen to have my name on a preliminary report? Take Fleece himself. He's paved the way for years. Built up a network of powerful allies. Men like Helmholtz.
That's where you're wrong. You speak of Fleece. He's every bit as much of an outsider as I am. But in Berlin, instead of patronizing him, it's true. Fleece has no special title to acceptance other than his work. His father was a merchant, none too successful, a provincial Jew come to the city to make his fortune and failing, just like mine. They even share the same name, Jakob. The difference is that while I fester here, he breathes a different air, less stale, less musty, but at least he understands my impatience. After spending time with him, I feel quite reinvigorated. My appetite for work returns. I'm full of new ideas.
You made any progress with the one Rietberg girl?
Yes. Yes. Extraordinary progress. She deserves a whole book to herself. I'll settle for a chapter. The paralysis in the right leg is completely cured.
Congratulations.
And the business with the brother-in-law finally found its way kicking and screaming to the surface. Have you read Bayer's book on the medieval witch trials? You should. The Inquisitors are our true forebears. And all those women possessed by demons, possess in the carnal sense of the word, of course, the unrepentant brides of Satan, they're still with us. Only we call it hysteria.
You say you have no more trouble with the right leg?
No. And what's strange, comical almost, is how pedantic the disease is. Do you know that when she thinks of her brother-in-law, it affects the right leg, but when she thinks of her father, it affects the left? We have yet to tackle that more delicate conjunction. And we shall, exhaustively.
I found my vocation, Joseph, as a witch finder.
And every soul I save, I dedicate to you, the secret master of hysteria, the prophet.
Zigmund.
Who else is coming tonight?
Oscar and Rosenberg, if his wife allows him to.
Ah, I have plans for Oscar. You know he's courting one of my patients with a little help from
Zigmund,
me.
answer me truthfully. I speak as your friend and your doctor. Are you taking much cocaine? When I think of the hours you work.
Why do you ask?
You know I prescribe it for external application. Fleece's nasal treatment is of considerable value, but when it comes to internal use,
Remember Ernst von Fleischl.
Josef, Fleischl died of a blood disease contracted from a corpse, not from the drugs he took. Besides, you know me well enough. I'm a habit breaker by temperament, not a habit maker. What you see is the intoxication of discovery.
I wouldn't describe it as an assault. It was merely an initiation, such as many boys of that age undergo, I would imagine, among their schoolmates.
Indeed. And following this initiation, you masturbated regularly until the age of 17?
16 or 17, yes.
And at the present time, do you continue on occasions to practice masturbation?
Infrequently, yes.
How often would you say?
Infrequently.
Once a week? Twice? More often? Infrequently, then. Tell me, these periodic depressions you experience, or bouts of anxiety, shall we say, follow intercourse with your wife?
Not immediately. Sometimes, several days later, I wake up feeling utterly apathetic, almost paralyzed.
The intercourse itself has been unsatisfactory, I take it. What is it that inhibits you from orgasm?
I'm not sure that I could identify precisely what it is, unless, fact to our long familiarity. Here, Doctor.
Please continue.
I was saying, our sheer familiarity, allied to the need to restrict the size of our family.
You use a condom. And in order to combat these dispiriting factors and to increase stimulation, do you perhaps conjure the images of other partners during intercourse with your wife? Other women? Or young girls you've encountered and whom you say you found increasingly attractive? Do you make use of such images? Do you make use of them while masturbating?
I was warned to expect some unorthodox questions.
Well, Herr Kastner, when sexual desire is checked, the accumulated tension is transformed into anxiety, right? Paralysis even. Do you understand? It's a simple, ordinary, human, if you like, mechanical process in all of us. And in order to relieve your condition, I must know what it is that obstructs the flow of sexual energy and what it is that releases it.
Thank you. You can sit up now. I have some news for you. We exchanged love tokens last night. Not with Frau Steiner, with the Divine Ida.
The Divine Ida. Love tokens, eh? I hope her token was in proportion to her divine wealth. There's no need to look so sheepish. I suspected you hadn't come to Vienna just to treat my migraines.
Don't tell anyone yet.
No.
But I think I'm shortly to be married.
Congratulations.
Slowly, Siggy. How does it feel? The nose.
nose is happily indifferent. It's numb. Feels like breathing through cotton wool.
You were till I removed it. And now that happy indifference should spread to your aching brain, along with the cocaine fumes. Is it working already?
I was searching for words to express how delighted I am. For you and your heiress.
Do you feel dizzy? What's the matter? Hmm? Oh, you should have warned me. Ziggy, what is it?
It's happened before. Many times. Heart palpitations and pressure. It isn't the cocaine. Breuer says perhaps myocarditis. I shan't live long. I've known that for some time.
I don't believe a word of it. You're smoking far too much. I know my constitution couldn't stand it. I don't suppose it yours
I keep
can.
dreaming farewell scenes. I know. I can't help it. Wilhelm. It's awful.
Stop this. I won't hear it. I was thinking of our conversation in Munich not so long ago. Are there sexual matters you haven't mentioned to me?
And if I tell you that it isn't so, if I swear it...
Haven't you noticed, Fräulein Elizabeth, that time and time again, your most passionate denials are reserved for memories that touch you most nearly? How the conscious mind erects defenses against ideas too painful to be borne. When he embraced you on his sickbed, you felt his body against you. Your words, Fräulein Elizabeth.
I embraced him. He was dying.
He loved you with all his strength, with a desire that any man, living or dying, might feel for an angelic creature.
No! 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 No!
He died of a disease contracted from a corpse.
Forgive me. I feel as if I'm throttling. As if I must get out of bed, out of the room, out of the house.
Do you want to get up?
Nothing but terrifying spaces.
Tell me.
Agoraphobia. As if the word could describe it.
Just now you said you had to get out of the house.
And plunge into the fear. You understand?
Explain it to me. It's agoraphobia.
That was in the dream. It's gone. Don't look so anxious. Dreams tell us we're all neurotic. They don't distinguish the healthy from the sick, unfortunately. I have a patient, an agoraphobic, who leads a double life. A respectable family man and night reveler. It isn't space that he's afraid of so much as what he may do in that space. Indeed, whom he longs to visit. Prostitutes, no doubt. The man I'm thinking of, his family is riddled with disease. Have I not told you about him? There's no doubt that people with a syphilitic parent have a tendency towards neurosis.
You used to tell me about all your cases.
I'm telling you now. A man who made a sensible marriage, happy, blessed with children. He and his wife practiced coitus interruptus for a time.
And now when I ask about you...
You used to listen better.
I am listening. But you'd rather discuss such things with others. I know that.
I'd rather discuss them with you, believe me.
It simply isn't true. There are things, it seems, I cannot provide.
You must accept that. A particular kind of companionship, for instance, that a side of me demands. A feminine side, perhaps. I can't put it more plainly. Do you understand what I'm saying? Fleece himself believes that we contain both sexes. And for that reason, we need both sexes. Both. Equally, I need more than male companionship, more than a sounding board. I felt so listless now for months. Unable to work. Dull-witted, wretched, and ill-tempered. Only you can help.
Last summer you couldn't work because you were too happy. You lacked the necessary misery
The moderate misery, not the necessary misery.
It's what you said.
That I was happy we were making love then.
And all this is my fault. Your listlessness, your dreams.
Nobody's fault. We agreed not to take any risks till you were stronger.
It's only pregnancy that's dangerous. Dr. Rees suggests...
Oscar's a fool. I know what he suggests. I've seen more than enough of the spiritual poisoning that comes with contraception and other recourses. As in the case I was describing to you, no doubt rather clumsily, trying to draw attention to some of the inevitable difficulties. Do I make you feel so useless?
No. Only sometimes it's as if his praise were nectar and ambrosia too.
It is. Don't you see that apart from you, Fleece is the only doctor who takes it for granted that my work is a serious scientific endeavor like any other. Not just some unsavory obsession with erotica. Even Breuer, who knows the truth of it better than anyone, is embarrassed by his own discoveries.
Poor Breuer. It's he who's loved you like a father.
Just so.
It's nothing, just a migraine.
Right side or left?
Left.
Would it be tactless to ask a newly married man if there are sexual matters you hadn't mentioned to me?
I have always suffered from migraines. Oh, forgive me. I didn't mean to be so abrupt. And the answer is no. I have no complaints. Except exhaustion and a general debility. You've given up? Since when?
A week.
Then can I take it you've decided not to die?
For the time being.
Any change in your domestic arrangements?
Only to the extent we've had separate beds installed. Well, we're like the couple who go to the doctor to ask how they can best avoid having a baby. And he says, drink a glass of water. Before or after, Doctor?
Instead.
Unless you can think of a better way.
There's someone trying to get your attention. An acquaintance?
A patient. Fräulein Eckstein. Attractive girl. Advanced views on womanhood and the battle of the sexes.
Where's the chaperone?
It's a sister. Emma has a peculiar difficulty. She can't go into shops alone.
She needs a man to accompany her. She looks robust enough.
Oh, she is. A mysterious element, I thought, until we dredged up a forgotten memory. It's predictable enough. When she was 8, a shopkeeper forced his attentions on her. But what is interesting is that she went back to the shop on subsequent occasions. It's not the incident itself that haunts her, but her own bad conscience. Oh, there are still certain somatic complications I haven't been able to dispel. Persistent stomach cramps. But one thing I'm sure of, there are 2 distinct responses to such an event. A hysteria, which develops from a passive submission to a pre-pubertal incident, a sexual advance of some kind, and obsessional neurosis, like Emma's, if the advance itself is undergone with pleasure.
Chapeau, Herr Doctor.
And that's a recent discovery. I tell you without fear of your repeating it, since no one's likely to want to steal such an absurd idea. Thank you.
You look cheerful enough, despite your deprivations.
Well, sacrifice and further sacrifice is the eternal counselor's advice.
Thank you.
If I can do without cigars, I dare say I can forego less important pleasures.
You may not have to. Apropos your earlier question, it may well be possible to prevent repeated pregnancies without substituting a glass of water. I've been working on a theory of dual periodicity in sexual and emotional life. Not only the 28-day cycle in the female, but a 23-day cycle in the male. It's at an early stage, but I'm convinced that intercourse can be perfectly safe at certain stages of the cycle, provided the dates are carefully observed.
My dear Wilhelm, if that's true, if you could establish a reliable gauge of fertility, you'd free us all. There'll be a statue to you in every city.
One will do, preferably in this very spot.
Well, I'll pay for it myself. I mean it. You have only to choose the marble.
In that case, we must go to Carrara and inspect the cliff face at dawn, like Michelangelo, to make sure the marble is as flawless as my theory.
My reputation suffers just as much as yours. Not that you'd notice such things. I've argued the significance of sexual factors as passionately as you have. But I will not concede that every single psychic ailment derives from them. I'd like to know what gives you the authority to disregard all other causes.
My own experience, Joseph. Mine. Don't you realize in this field, self-knowledge is worth 100 patients? Delusions, nightmares, depressions. I've suffered amply from them in the last 12 months. There have been days when it was more than I could do to cut the pages of a book. Do you think I don't know why? And when I find you, sick and wan at home, staring at a hand of patience, do you think I don't know why that is? Do you think your wife doesn't know why? See, that's the difference between us. When sexual problems affect you, you hide behind the age-old conspiracy of silence, as if we couldn't guess that impotence had invaded the Breuer household, the dreadful secret.
Really, one cannot talk to you in this mood.
One cannot talk to you in any mood. You're growing senile. In the head.
This was not what I came to discuss with you.
You astonish me.
Herr Hartmann has written to me from Egypt very anxious about his health. It would appear that dysentery has supervened.
Nonsense.
He was already showing symptoms.
The man's defecatory problems were entirely hysterical. You had to go and send him on a sea voyage.
No doubt you resent my having deprived you of a patient.
Not in the least. As far as that goes, my work at the Children's Hospital is tiding me over nicely at the moment, thank you.
There's also the matter of Fräulein Eckstein. I gather that Fliess has begun to treat her, at your recommendation.
He shares my view that the abdominal pains are connected with a sexual trauma, and further, that her hemorrhaging may coincide with menstruation. In his opinion, a classic case of nasal reflex syndrome.
I should only like to warn you of a recklessness that others have observed in his approach.
Recklessness? I'd have thought you'd be the first to celebrate if the man can find a way to cure neurotic patients without having to hunt the Minotaur through the labyrinth of puberty. Such distasteful labors.
Zigmund, I can see you're not well.
Well, you don't trust me. You don't trust Fliess, and worst of all, you don't trust yourself.
My dear Zigmund, with regard to our unhappy meeting the other day, I have no doubt you have had time to consider your words at greater leisure. I know I have. And I can only offer this conclusion, that while you continue to play the rebellious son, I have no option but to play the aggrieved father. It isn't only neurotic patients, you know, who undergo a giddy transference of their emotional needs onto the person of their confessor. It happens between friends.
Nonetheless, I must concede one thing. I'm getting older. It is time I put my head on the block. So, my dear intemperate friend, I acquiesce. Let us publish our endeavors, and may the public never know how close we came to destroying our precious collaboration. Your devoted Joseph.
How did you do it?
I shouted at him.
You can't fault him for magnanimity.
No, so long as he doesn't change his mind. And I shan't give him time. I'll work on the book at Schloss Bellevue if needs be. It'll be a pleasure. Perhaps it'll bring in some money. And who knows? Before too long, if you were feeling stronger.
Does your husband eat Gugelhupf? Because if it's not out of place to advise one's doctor on his diet, I know a little patisserie.
You must come and visit us this summer at the Bellevue. Bring Anna. It's just a suggestion, Oscar.
Have you seen Dr. Hume?
Tell me, do you think Martha's well enough to withstand the rigors of another childbirth?
I would presume to advise you.
But you advise her. As her doctor, you can give her the necessary reassurance.
And you'd like me to?
Come in. Yes. Come in. And don't let Martha monopolize the lady, or we shall have invited her in vain.
Zigmund, are you advising me to pursue an arrangement with a patient of yours who's still undergoing treatment?
Why not?
Papa?
It's all right. Come and join us.
The telephone.
Freud. Speak more slowly. When did this happen?
No!
Please.
No!
Please, just put your head back. Just for an instant, put it back.
Now, be strong. We'll soon find the cause.
Cold water in a basin. I must insist that you lie down.
Why? What's wrong? I'm perfectly able to stand.
Lie down. You will be all right if you just lie quietly. Do as he says. Please. Be strong.
It's as I warned you, she has a history of psychosomatic
Yes, I am
pains.
familiar with the case. When did Fleece operate on her nose?
A week ago, 10 days perhaps.
And left directly for Berlin without waiting to observe the effects. Is it true that one of his patients had her nose entirely rotted away with a cocaine necrosis?
It's you who've been talking to Breuer.
Zigmund, have you ever heard of a qualified doctor leaving an entire length of cotton wool inside a patient? It isn't true. Thank you. Quite still. Head back.
No.
Still. Still for a minute.
Poor father. I could see the pain in his face. But he never complained. Except at night. In his sleep. They made a bed up for me in his room so that I could stay with him. And at night, when he cried out, it was unbearable. I had to comfort him and lie with him. You understand?
I dreamed the devil came to me when I was asleep.
He had pearls in his lapel. At least, I thought they were pearls until he took one out. It was a long pin.
Dr. Freud, after all these months, all these heart-searching physical tests, visits to spas, is this what it comes to? Marry Oscar? Is that all?
Poor father. You understand?
Marry Oscar? Is that all it comes to? What does it mean?
My dear Wilhelm, by one of those accidents to which we are all happily prone, the unfortunate business with Emma's operation returned to haunt me last night most fruitfully in dreams. One day, perhaps, a statue matching yours will be erected at the Schloss Bellevue. If not, at least a plaque. Believe me, I deserve it. I had already recognized that we were all neurotic in the inverted, nocturnal world. But now I see that the dream only reveals what lies concealed during the day, in all of us. The primitive, unbridled, sexual megalomania of the instincts. The dream is simply wish fulfillment. Dear friend, if Martha has a boy, we shall call him Wilhelm. If a girl, I've been thinking, of the women in my dream, I already have a Martha and a Matilda, named after Breuer's wife. Why not Anna, like Anna Lichtheim and the Baroness? That way, true to my dream, I have them all.